Okay, so thanks for being here. Those of you who are joining us now, you might let us know that you can see a screen, that you can hear me chatting. You might just jump onto the chat quickly and let us know that you can see and hear us. That'd be great to know that you're here. And I'm just gonna do some housekeeping and some general introductions as we let the rest of the people join our session today. That's great, Siobhan. Thank you very much. Paul, thank you. Great that you can hear. Hi, Liz. How are you? Glad that you can hear us. Okay, so welcome to our Great Place to Work webinar, How to Build a Great Place to Work. We are delighted to have you here with us today. My name is Fania Stoney and I am a consultant here with Great Place to Work. Along with two colleagues, Brian Sutton, who is our Client Relationship Manager, and Cathal Divley, who is our partner. We're going to be taking you through the webinar this morning. I don't know if you want to say hi quickly, Brian.
Morning, hi everybody. Thanks for taking the time.
Morning, folks. How are you?
So just by the way of a general introduction and just to give you a sense of Great Place to Work. So as part of our Best Workplaces process last year, we had over 60,000 responses to our survey. And we recognized 91 organizations in February, just before the country went into lockdown. So we did pretty well on our event timing this year. And what we want to bring you through today is the process overall, but really to shine a light on how any organization of any size can create a great culture. And really give you a sense of how it is that we measure that great culture, how trust sits at the heart of our model, and how it provides a framework for organizations to move from data to action, to demonstrate listening, and also that supports the HR and leadership agenda. So it can really give you some actionable insight around each of those. Finally, we've also kind of built out how the Great Place to Work model can help you build your internal employee value proposition, or your EVP, and also your external employer brand. So just a few things that we're going to be running through today. Some housekeeping, so please do keep your questions coming to us in the chat. I know some of you have pre-submitted questions and that's great, but do keep them coming to us. I can see that you're all using the chat function. Hello to Yaroslava in Finland. It's snowing in Helsinki. It is raining here in Mayo, so I don't know, maybe we've had sunshine for so long, so I think all the gardens are delighted for a bit of the rain this morning. We will be sharing the slides and we will be sharing this recording with all of you after the session. So I know if you're like me and you're furiously scribbling notes, you don't have to take the stuff down off the slides. We will be sharing those with you along with some bonus slides for the guys who've attended today as well. We'll be aiming to wrap up within the hour. And I think, looking at our participant numbers, we can kick off. So to get us started, I'm going to hand you over to Cathal Divley, partner with Great Place to Work.
Fania, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all well. Hope your families are safe and healthy wherever you are in the country, or in Finland, outside of the country. So for our clients, I guess as part of this COVID response, we have put on a weekly webinar every Thursday at 10 o'clock. And we've also developed a free pulse survey that we've given to clients to send out to their employees to really get to understand their experience at the moment in terms of working from home, and give some good intel back to the company. So this particular webinar is about, as Fania said, it's what you need to know around Great Place to Work. Trying to provide you with sort of information in terms of how you can get involved, what the value is. But as Fania said, look, we're really interested in your questions, your comments. We are going to sort of present our model and our approach. But we're really interested in meeting you where you are within your company. It's very much a partnership approach that we look to take with each organization that we work with. When we set up the business, we had a core belief, which was we believed that any company of any size, of any industry, can build a great workplace. Not a perfect workplace, but a great workplace. And we're very thankful that we've had the opportunity to work with lots of companies from different industries, different sizes, to support them on their Great Place to Work journey, if you like. And you know, there's probably two core reasons, I guess, why organizations get involved. I mean, one is they use our model as a framework to put a structure in terms of everything they do for their people and their culture. And the other reason then is around this area of employer branding. So the opportunity to be recognized as a great place to work is good in terms of your talent attraction piece. And we're often asked, I guess, how does a typical company journey look like? So I'm going to take you through a sort of how that journey flow would look. So this infographic that we have on the screen in front of us is our efforts to kind of give you a sense as to how a program flow would look. And as the guys take you through the various elements involved in the program, a lot of these will make more sense. So on the left-hand side, that lovely picture of the rocket taking flight, I guess is the start of the program, but actually there's an element before that, which is we'll sit down with you as the organization. We will begin to get to know your business, understand your needs, your wants in terms of in getting involved in a program like this. And that actually supports us to help you in terms of how you position the program internally with your employees, with your colleagues. So once you sign up, then the project starts off. You will have a project plan in place, which will give you key metrics, milestones, dates. So you'll have that project plan that you can share internally in terms of how the program is going to look. As we move down the map, if you like, a lot of our clients have built an internal working team. They might call it their internal Great Place to Work team. But that's a team of people who represent each function of the business, who play a role in terms of this Great Place to Work journey. So that team is established. We'll help you set up that team. We'll support that team in terms of being successful, what they're going to work on. And often the first element that team will work on is the culture audit submission. I know Fania is going to take you through details about what's involved with that. It's a stock take of your current people, policies and practices. We then move into the survey phase. Again, you're supported through all of this. We'll support you in terms of survey setup. We will support you in terms of monitoring response rates. You'll have a project manager, all of that. And a number of weeks then after the survey closes, we're in a position then to deliver your results. And what we like to do in terms of that delivery is have that first session with the leadership team, where we will sit with HR and the leadership team. We'll present your results. We'll show how you benchmark. But I think more importantly, we'll have a conversation about developing actions that are going to work for your business and your strategy. So it's very much a model that looks to create movement. It's a survey that looks to create movement off the back of the results. So we will arm you with that action plan that will support you in terms of making those improvements to your people and culture. And then over the far right of the screen, you can see the Great Place to Work recognition, which as I said is good for your employer branding. That's locked. You can unlock that by hitting the threshold and hitting the standard, and then you are recognized as a great place to work. And as we go through the presentation, a lot of these things will become more obvious and more clear, but just wanted to give you a sense as to how a program flow would look. And just down the very bottom of this slide, you can see some sort of core elements. On the right-hand side, you have that piece around access to client events. So we have been really conscious when we set up the business to set up a community of organizations who are learning with each other. So there'll be an invite to events during the year, and you also get access to other companies to support you on your Great Place to Work journey. So look, as Fania said, thanks very much for joining us. Please let's ensure we have as much of a conversation as we can, and keep your questions coming.
Great, thanks, Cathal. So thanks for that. You've covered a lot there, and as Cathal has said, the idea of today is to give a really good overview in terms of the overall methodology and the process as well. So I know some of the people on the call will have looked at this already, and some are new. So it's just a mixture of trying to find that middle ground, I suppose, really. And as Cathal suggested there, when we look at an organization, we look at it in two ways. So through the viewpoint of the employee and their view, and they articulate that through the survey, and then the manager view also, which Fania is going to cover. So what I'm going to really focus on is introducing this model that explores the trust experience for the employee in your organization. bring to life the 5 dimensions that we measure when we talk about trust. And then if we have a little bit of time, just talk about, I suppose, delivery and how this information informs your organization as such. So as Cathal has said, the key defining feature of a great workplace is trust. And we're not the only ones that talk about this. You know, trust is universally acknowledged as being vital, but we measure it. And that's really, really important. So it's trying to understand and give you insight from a proven methodology and framework as to where your organization really sits. And something our clients tell us that they love is benchmarking. So to understand how your organization is scoring against the benchmark. So leaving aside the reward and recognition for a moment, it's really beneficial to look at this in a sphere in terms of how is our organization actually performing, and where do we need to take action. So good news is, I suppose, anything that's measurable, we have a definition. So the formal definition around what a great place to work is from an employee perspective is that you trust the people that you work for, have pride in what you do, and enjoy the people that you work with. So to me, that sounds quite light when you look at it, but when we bring up the model, you really start to see, I suppose, when we talk about trusting the people that you work for, have pride in the job that you do, and enjoy the people that you work with, that really places the employee or the colleague at the center of 3 key relationships. So that silhouette of the lady in the middle there, that relationship upward towards management, that is the trust relationship. That is the core for this piece that we're measuring. So when we're talking about trust in the workplace, it's not trust to senior management if you're part of a global organization or even a domestic Irish organization. Primarily, it's about that trust relationship between the employee or the colleague and their line manager, their supervisor, their project manager, whoever it is that they're reporting to. I suppose in a more typical work-life experience, that's very much reporting possibly day to day or physically seeing that manager day to day. Now more and more in this period, a lot of that is remotely. And that pulls on the relationship that managers have built. So a large part of what we do really, I suppose, is inform the organizations how well their managers are delivering and creating that trust relationship. So when we're, as I say, it's measurable. So when we're talking about trust specifically in the workplace, we're measuring credibility, respect, and fairness. So there's going to be a group of statements within the survey looking at all these areas. So if we look at credibility, really what we're measuring there is competence, two-way communication, integrity. So statements within the survey will be things like statements like, my manager keeps me up to date with important information. My manager makes their expectations clear. Or a really important one is, my manager's actions match their words. So if you notice, all these statements are positive and they're framed in that way. And the survey is set out so that people respond to those statements on a scale, a Likert scale of 1 to 5, 1 being negative, which is almost always untrue, right up to number 5, which is almost always true, and number 4, usually true. So when we're giving you feedback, as an aside, when we're giving you feedback, we consider both 4 and 5 to be a positive answer. But the important thing is here, the survey gives you an insight, which is not just strongly agree or strongly disagree, it's the full spectrum to show you really on a intensity scale where people are in relation to the particular area that we're examining. But credibility is a vital area for all managers, and naturally we're not all the same. Some managers develop this more easily than others, and we're trying to really look in and to support that. The next area then in terms that we look at is respect. So this is really hugely around, am I respected as an individual, am I respected as a person in the organization? And probably the best way to demonstrate this is collaboration. So do people feel that they're collaborated with? If there is change coming, do they feel that they're going to be part of that and they're going to be kept informed as they go along? So look, I suppose as Cathal said at the outset, you know, best workplaces and certified workplaces are not perfect, but what we're really trying to discover here is, how do the employee group articulate that they feel that they're being brought along, that they feel, most importantly, that they have a value and that their role contributes to the mission of the organization, and that they understand that. A huge area there on the 3 is caring, which has grown strongly over the last number of years as being a very important area for people in all sectors and in all organizations. And I suppose it's been brought into the focus with COVID-19 now as well. So the final area of the 3 then in the trust element is fairness. Sorry, just need to let me throat a little bit. So fairness is an interesting one. You would think in the Irish workplace it's skewed strongly towards the employee in terms of structure. But really what we're measuring here, and when we do measure it, I should say, it's probably more about perception. So this is really trying to understand, do people feel that there is a sense of fairness within their workplace? Or on the other side, is there actually more a sense of favoritism? Is there a sense of potential politicking? You know, do promotions go to those that best deserve them? So it's really trying to tease out where are the people sitting in their view of this. And when we're coming on later on, Cahill's going to bring to life in terms of feedback. This is a very interesting area to give feedback to the senior management team. So those 3 areas really examine and measure the trust relationship, as I say. I suppose the energy and dynamic then that drive that relationship are pride and camaraderie. So pride is really important. Pride is something that you know all organizations want to develop, and they'll have built structures around that to try and deliver on that. But where we're measuring here is pride in my own job as a member of the team, pride in the team, and pride in the general organization. So it's really important I think, to look at that. We'd have many organizations where individuals can have a really high sense of pride in terms of what they do and their role in the organization. But sometimes that can be to the detriment that they don't see where they fit into the broader organization. And in fact, they view themselves as being so important that the rest of the team are like a supporting cast almost. So we really need to understand across the organization, what is that interlinking? What is that sense where people are feeling that they're aligned and they're proud of what they do. Camaraderie then is the last area, the 5th dimension. I suppose obviously is the people that you work with. So the teams that you're working with, and you know, we've seen a lot in the last number of weeks where organizations are probably trying their best to recreate that personal contact, that space, that you know, communication between the teams that they may have taken for granted in their office. So it's really important, I suppose, when people are in the office or when they're virtually working, that they have a great sense of togetherness with their people. But camaraderie is also the community that you work into. So some organizations may struggle with what community they're working into and the impact that they have. So we're really trying to understand how do people view that. So as I said at the beginning, we have these are the 5 dimensions. The key defining difference of a great workplace is trust. The survey is called the Trust Index Survey and produces ultimately a TI score that contributes towards the various recognitions that we have. From I suppose a metric point of view in terms of running the survey, what gives employees a lot of comfort is a great place to work is an external expert. The methodology is proved and proven. So for over 40 years now, we have a strong methodology and process there. And it's important, I suppose, when communicating out to employees before a survey goes live, that great place to work are the ones that run the survey. So for the organization and the HR team, what they really like is that we run the survey. So in terms of workload and pull on your side as an organization, we really take that off the desk and we run the survey. Before the survey goes live, we take a template of the organization, and as Cathal said, we work with you to understand more about your organization. What are you focusing on? What is your strategy as an organization? And how can the survey results inform the success of that strategy and what alignment needs to be taken? From a pure structure view there are 78 statements in total in the survey at the moment. Now, the reason that we have 78 statements, it contributes and gives insight into 21 different categories that Cathal is going to talk about. So giving your organization a really deep insight. Now, I don't know if 78 sounds like a lot. Sometimes people say, God, that sounds like a lot of statements. But to give you an idea, it takes 10 to 12 minutes for people to fill in the survey. We have two open-ended questions at the end of the survey as well. So we have the 78 statements that people answer on that Likert scale that I mentioned. And then we have the two open-ended questions. So one is comment. So one is, if it's a great place to work, tell us why. And in here, we hear all the things that people really like about their workplace, what they enjoy, what they value, and they articulate that. The second one then is more around suggestions. So it's, if you could change or introduce something that would make it a better place to work for you, tell us what that is. And this really gives a great insight and weight to some of the data that comes back. So when we see the data coming back, that's fine, but along with the commentary, it really builds up, what are people looking for in their workplace? What would they like to see more of? It can be interesting in here, sometimes people will suggest that they'd like to see more of something that the company actually believes it already delivers. So that means that it's not landing with their people. So I suppose what's important to say as well is that the organization doesn't need to react to everything that's stated in here. Sometimes people will talk about things they'd like to see more of, but if it's not going to help the organization to achieve its organizational objectives, then it may not be something that the organization actually needs to jump on and participate with. But I suppose really the important part here is to establish the fact that Great Place to Work is that external expert and provides confidentiality. So it means that people can fill in their survey in a very safe environment and give their responses and know that action is going to be taken.
Brian, we've got one question in quickly, if that's all right.
Okay.
Somebody just asking, can you give a sense of the benchmarks that we can provide as part of the survey?
Well, huge. How long have we got? We have a huge range of benchmarks. So you, as an organisation, have a choice. You can look at the list of best workplaces for this year already, and you'll see in there that there's a full range, not just of companies, but private sector, public sector, non-for-profit, and charitable organisations as well. When we're recognising, and we'll come on to this later, but recognize the size of the organization, so best small, medium and large organizations. So you can benchmark versus size, benchmark versus industry, and within an organization, you can use different benchmarks as well. So I suppose there's a thing here in terms that the survey globally has the same set of statements. So if you can imagine people on a manufacturing line, people who are coding in a software organization, people who are working in retail, people who are working in pharmaceutical and sciences are all answering the same statements, but the statements mean very different things in different parts of the organization. So within your organization, you may have a administration, accounts and support function. You may have a customer front-facing function, and you may have IT or finance or software. So we can explore with you, as Carl suggested at the outset, in terms of understanding your business. What are the things that you're focusing on? What challenges? It can be really interesting to, obviously, I suppose, benchmark within your own industry, but what can be quite insightful is to look at other benchmarks as well outside of industry and learn in terms of how other organizations have actually taken steps. And really this is around prioritizing the steps rather than jumping in and trying to solve everything. It's saying, okay, now that we look at the benchmark, here is the important path and route that we're going to take.
Fania, just to maybe add to that. So we typically will compare organizations to 3 benchmarks. So, you know, similar size, industry, maybe comparison to the best workplaces category in their size category. It's important for one of those benchmarks to be, I would say, a stretch benchmark, because it's within that stretch that encourages that improvement and that movement as well. So we like to see the results that you have as well, and then we kind of match you up with those appropriate benchmarks.
Brilliant. Okay. So thank you so much, Brian, for taking us through that, and Cathal and Brian for answering those questions. Keep those questions coming in. I can see some are coming in private to me and that kind of piece, so we will get to them. So taking you through the kind of the other element, or the other side of the coin, I suppose. Brian's taking you through what it means to have that kind of employee view of a great place to work. And the other piece that we look to investigate is, you know, what's the organizational view? And you can see in front of you now what we call our culture practice wheel. And there are 9 practice areas that I'll take you through now, but each organization who takes part in the Great Place to Work process submits what's called a culture audit to us, and it just gives us a sense of who you are, what your culture is, and what you've got going on and what you're investing in underneath these 9 areas. And I suppose the one thing to really hammer home on this one is there is no such thing as a perfect culture audit. Similar to what Cathal is saying earlier, there's no such thing as a perfect best workplaces. And this isn't a tick box exercise. It's not a case of if I have everything that they're suggesting we have under each of these areas, I'm going to get, full points on this. What this really gives us is a sense of what are you investing in, what are your practices, and how are you defining your workplace culture? And I suppose to put a bit of meat on the bones on that. So a great workplace is one that achieves its organizational objectives. So that really sits again at the core of our piece. Where are you going as a business? How are you going to get there? And how are you including people within that? So how are you inspiring employees, values, vision, mission, the overall strategy of the business, and then our 2 communication practices. So speaking, how does a message get from the top to the bottom in your organization? And listening, one that we're really seeing being, I suppose, tested at the moment, is how are those messages coming back up from the bottom to the top? How do you have mechanisms for direct feedback? What does collaboration look like in your organization? What does innovation look like in your organization? So we're really trying to get underneath those communication practices in your organization there. The second piece then is, with people who give their personal best. So how are you caring for people? Again, Brian spoke into that briefly from the survey point of view, but what we're looking for here is how are you helping people balance their work and personal life? Again, we're seeing this accelerated blur between the personal and the professional at the moment. So this is really becoming one of those kind of key areas that is kind of key areas of distinction for organizations at the moment. How are you developing people, both personally and professionally? What does career growth look like? How are you supporting people in both soft and hard skills, those kind of bits and pieces? And then the final one there is thanking. So how are you recognizing people for a job well done? How are you differentiating people who go above and beyond? Does it link back to your values? Is there a certain way that we're doing things around here, and how are we recognizing that? And then the final one is working together as a team or family. So we've got elements here around how are you hiring? So what does your employer brand look like? How are you going out to the market to look for people? What does the interview process look like? And then those who are successful, how are we welcoming them in through the door? Celebrating is all around highlighting individual, team, and organizational level success. So how are you celebrating milestones and also some of those more personal achievements too? And then the final one is sharing. So sharing is balancing the piece between your overall rewards and compensation and benefits package, but also your CSR activities. So any of those community type, CSR charity practice that you've got going on. And what this allows us to do is we take this kind of full element of your organization. As both Brian and Cathal have mentioned, we do provide setup and support in this, right? So we often train a Great Place to Work team to help pull this document together and really kind of draw on the various strengths within an organization to pull this document together. But it gives us a sense of what investment you have going on. And what we're able to do with this then is have a look at, okay, so given your size, given your industry, given the type of work that you've got going on, what would we expect to see, and what's some best practice that we're seeing other organizations do that we could share with you? So you really get quite a lot of insight from this. The other piece that's key, I suppose, with this culture audit is it's really driving the policies and practice that you have in place. And one of the critical elements for the success of Great Place to Work overall is how consistently things are being applied. I suppose one of the things I'd ask you to think about now is, we've all had an experience of good management, right? And we've all had those managers who just got that I need the little pat on the back to say job well done. And Cathal really needs to be put on a podium and say, woo, Cathal, that was a great job. And the whole organization gets around in the big boola bus, right? Some managers just get that. They get that kind of difference in how people want to be recognized. And some managers really struggle in that. It may be not, it's not natural to them or they're just not sure. And when we can really showcase the practices that the organization is committing to, we can actually make sure that they're being more consistently applied across the organization. So you can see here on this slide, on the left-hand side, you've got that management vision, the culture audit that's driving your workplace culture. It's driving that high trust, high performance environment and allowing for that consistent application of policies and practices. And on the right-hand side, we have what Brian has taken you through, which is the employee experience, measured through the Trust Index survey, that gives you a sense of where employees are and what their perception is of the organization. This allows us to do a couple of things. First, and again, the guide has spoken into it already, but it gives us a sense of, okay, you are investing in X. We can see it from your culture audit. It's not landing with people. It's not coming through your data. So how can we kind of help you address that? It may be that there's something really strong in your culture audit. It's coming out really strong in your survey. Going, guys, that makes a lot of sense. And then the final piece that we have there is sometimes there's something really strong that comes out in your survey that you're actually not telling us about in your culture audit. So how can we help you bring that story to life, and what does that look like? So the organization puts together the culture audit, you've done the survey, one of us comes back out on site and spends a couple of hours with your senior team. And I'm going to hand over to Cathal now to give you a sense of what that kind of next step would look like, what that results delivery looks like, and what action planning can look like for the organization.
Thanks, Anya. Thanks for telling everyone that I crave that recognition. I appreciate that. So we're often asked the question, can you share an example of an organization you've helped improve their trust levels or helped improve their culture? So we put together this infographic which maps a client of ours in terms of from when they started to where they got to, and the sort of initiatives that they put in place to improve their culture. So the company is Avantcard. Some of you might be familiar with MBNA, who are based in Carrick and Shannon. As an organization, MBNA went through a lot of challenge. There was a lot of job loss. And we met with the leadership team, and they had two primary motivations. One was we need to improve the culture, improve trust levels with our people. And the second is, you know, that carrot, that carrot of potentially being recognized as a great place to work is something that they would strive towards, but it wasn't their primary motivation. So as Fanny said there, with the culture audit, we have the survey as the two elements. They would have done the culture audit. They have an internal working team actually called the Culture Vaders that they're very proud of in terms of the name they've come up with, but they would have put together the culture audit and they would have gone through the survey. And then I went in and met the leadership team and presented their results. And in the first year, you can see their overall trust level was 57%. Now, we talk about lots of data and across all the areas and benchmarks and all of that, but their overall number, they had a trust level of 57%, okay? And that was their starting point. And we had about 2-hour session with the leadership team where we spoke about the numbers, but more importantly, we talked about where they need to go in terms of that action plan piece. So the infographic is a sort of an attempt, if you like, to I guess explain kind of that journey. So along the very bottom, you can see that they had a 3-pronged approach in terms of their strategy after we presented the first set of results. So the senior leadership team took a couple of areas that they took responsibility for. HR had 3 areas that they looked at, which is reward and pay, performance management, career and development. And that internal working team, the cultivators, they looked at the area of recognition, engagement and well-being. And if you just have a look at that senior leadership team areas, one of the areas they looked at was management and leadership. And specifically what they looked at was middle management, because when we presented their results, I guess I was able to tell them that their middle manager group had lower trust levels than the teams that they were managing. So their middle management trust levels was lower than their staff non-management trust levels. So obviously that's a big concern, right? These are our people managers. These are our managers that are managing performance within the business. So it's really important we improve those middle management trust levels. And one initiative that they did, it wasn't the only thing, but to give you one example of what they did as a reaction to that, was they invited some middle managers into their senior leadership team meeting, which takes place every couple of weeks on a rotated basis. So they brought middle managers into their space. They invited middle managers onto their senior leadership team meeting just to see how the meeting takes place and to contribute. And that went a long way to kind of breaking down those trust barriers that were in place between the middle managers and the senior managers. And along the very center of the slide there, you can just see some of the initiatives that they introduced off the back of the first survey. The second year that they got their survey results, you can see their trust level was at 73%. So they started at 57, they put the right actions in place, and they got to 73%. And most important about that 73% is that their middle manager trust levels had improved. So we know it's sustainable from a culture point of view. And they don't stop at 73%. They're a client that uses the program every year, and their journey continues, if you like. And we picked out one particular question from the survey. Now, as Brian said, there's 78 questions, but one question in particular that, in a way, sort of the first year disappointed Chris, the managing director, the most was that question there. People believe that the organization will act on the results of the survey. So the first year when their trust level was 57%, only 51% of people agreed that, you know what, they're going to do something with these results. We believe in the follow-up. And the second year they took the survey, that number had got to 79% because of the plan that they had put in place, because of the commitment that they had made towards improvement. And in the second year, they were recognized as a great place to work, which was an added bonus for them. So you'll have these slides, so you'll get to study that infographic in more detail if you want. And the next slide then, it speaks to sort of this idea of actionable categories, right? So Breen presented the model where we talk about credibility, respect, and fairness, and that's how the survey questions were evolved at the start and were introduced at the start. And from feedback from clients after the first few years in business, we heard that some clients were struggling to get movement from the survey data. So nobody owns credibility, nobody owns respect within the organization. So we've now bucketed the survey questions into these 21 categories. So when we come and present your results, you'll be seeing the data from the categories that you can see in front of you on the screen. So we'll be presenting back in terms of communication and involvement, management and leadership, line management, talent management, well-being, performance management. So the survey questions are very much grouped into categories that we believe helps that action planning and that supports your action planning process, because the reason we do the survey is to create positive movement off the back of the results. In Avantcard's place is in Avantcard's area in terms of the infographic, the case study I just shared, we were able to say to Avantcard, your middle management numbers on the area of communication and involvement and leadership are lower than your staff non-management numbers. This is an area that needs to be addressed. So we can look at these categories across all demographics. Once there's 5 or more responses, we can look at the data and present that data back to you.
Cathal, I've just got another direct question in here around those survey numbers. So I think just for clarification purposes, you talked about them getting their people manager numbers. Is this something that we can do? So I was reading the question here. Is this something we can do broken down by location, department, or is there a predefined? I think someone just wondering what kind of breakdown people can get as part of that insight.
Of course, yeah, it's a great question. So we can look at the data in terms of 5 or more responses, Fania. So that leaves a lot of scope to look at data. What I would say, and this is the advice we'd give to clients, in the first year, you don't want to go too deep in terms of the levels of data that you look at, because you have to build trust in the process and your people have to trust the process. So I would start at more of a higher level across the business, across function, and perhaps in year 2 or year 3, you can look at the data across managers and a more breakdown of demographics like that.
Great, thank you very much for that, Cathal. Okay, Brian, do you want to take us through the different types of recognition that we're currently offering?
Sure, yes, thanks for paying attention now. So what we've talked about there this morning is all about the process and in terms of what the insight that it's giving to your organization. I suppose one of the big benefits of being engaged with Great Place to Work is the opportunity to be recognized externally using the Great Place to Work logo and banner in its different forms. We have 2 main routes here. And I suppose it very much depends on where the organization is at, what their plans are for the future, how they want to approach it. In terms of best workplaces, this is the traditional one. It's the one that's best known. And I'm just going to buzz through these quite quickly. I'm conscious of time and I know we want to get to questions. So I'll just give a quick overview of each. So best workplaces and certification are the two recognition processes. The model and methodology is the same for both, but the scoring is different and the approach is slightly different. Best workplaces, I say, is it's a traditional one, the one that's the best known across the market. And what that means is organizations engage in the full process. So as we said, the survey accounts for 2/3 of the score, and that's really important for us. So that means that this is not an award or a recognition that is submission based, where an organization might tell us a wonderful story. This is based predominantly on the workplace experience and the trust scores within that, and that gives real strength and credibility to anybody being recognized and to achieving the award. So best workplaces, say, means organizations take part, I should say, in both the survey element and submit a culture audit and have a senior management feedback of the results. It is really a 1-year commitment, and what that means is all organizations in that year who participate and their scores are calculated together, then populate up into a list of the best. So it produces a ranked list that you'll see in the Irish Times magazine on the Thursday morning following the awards. And it's celebrated on the February of each year. So it means that the work is done during this year, and it's at the end of the year then we advise organizations they're going to be listed, and we celebrate in February. And I suppose in a lot of ways it relies upon the quality and quantity and the standard of organizations that engage in that year will drive the position and the ranking of the list. Now, we celebrate the list and the ranking on that one night. After that, we don't talk about the ranking number too much, because once you're on the list, you are really one of the best, and it's a top level list approach. Certification then is something that we introduced a number of years ago now, and has been very well received. So certification, as I said, same methodology, but actually slightly lower scoring than best workplaces. And the approach here, if I could frame this, would be to say that it's very much along the lines of an ISO standard. So that's the way organizations typically think about it. So this is a fixed standard that an organization is working towards. So they're very much on your own path, your own timing. And the idea here is, in terms of organizations can engage in what I suppose I would call a safe space. They're not worried about competition. They're not worried about being top 10. They're actually saying, okay, we want to achieve certification, and we have absolute clarity around what that goal line is and what it is that we're working towards. So if we don't achieve it in the first cycle, we know what we need to act on to work towards the second. So you can see there at the top line, it's a 3-year commitment. So it's a 3-year commitment to continuous improvement. But just to be really clear about this, it doesn't mean it takes 3 years to achieve it. The reason organizations really like this is I see probably two main types of organizations engaging here. Some organizations believe they're good, if not great. They believe they're very close. They don't want to wait around till February to be recognized. They want to see, can they celebrate that achievement now? So we can actually turn that around in 12 to 14 weeks. So it is absolutely possible to be certified in the first cycle. If, however, you don't achieve it, the way organizations tend to communicate this is that they say they're engaging with Great Place to Work Institute with the view to becoming certified over the next 3 years. So it gives real confidence to the people that the organization is engaging in this, they're committed to it, they're behind it, and they're going to work together with their people to achieve that certification status. So given that, then that means that you can start certification at any time of the year that you want. So therefore it is annualized. So example, if you engage with us now, we could potentially have you certified in July. That means you'd be certified from July 2020 to June 2021. And if your scores are good enough, you can automatically be included in the best workplaces recognition as well. And we'll be able to communicate and navigate that. So recognition, very much a part of that. The way I'm talking about it here is very much the external recognition and the external celebration of that. There's also opportunities to celebrate internally for you as an organization as well. But I suppose people really value certification because they have control over the timing of when they run the survey and run their culture audit. And, you know, it feeds into the Best Workplaces program as well. So that's just an overview there. I might pass
Great,
back to you, Fania, I think, in terms of the internal
Great,
piece.
yeah, thanks, Brian. So just to give you a sense, like Brian's really given you the detail there around best workplaces and certified. And we do have a range of recognitions, and I know a lot of you know these in the market anyway, but we now recognize the best workplaces for women. Organizations get exposure in the Best Workplaces magazine. There's a European list, there's a global list, and there's also a couple of very specific ones, like our most trusted leader this year was Declan Reynan of Woody's. We have our Great Place to Work ambassador, so somebody who really shows a commitment and understanding of the model, who this year was Jarlath Dooley of version 1. And then a Great Place to Work team, because we have multiple teams set up in organizations across these organizations, and they are really our driving force internally within their organizations. We just look to recognize them as well. And actually thinking back to Avantcard, the cultivators, who I think now, Cathal, are the advocators. I think rebranded themselves, but they were a previous winner of our Great Place to Work team too. So we really do look to recognize the kind of hard work that's being done by organizations. The other piece I just really want to kind of quickly give you a brief sense of is how we support organizations to activate this achievement. So one of our kind of keystone events that we have is all of the organizations who have either been certified or are going to be recognized as a best workplace. We actually bring together every January and give them a chance to learn from other organizations about how they've showcased the achievement and what that looks like. And that really kind of drives both the internal employee value proposition piece, but also the external employer brand. So how is it that organizations are celebrating the achievement internally? What does that look like? We have seen our logo splashed across so many foodstuffs at this stage, from donuts to biscuits to cakes, but it really does drive that kind of sense of achievement that's sitting within the organization. And then I suppose that external piece. So kind of, so what does this mean? How is this going to drive our talent pipeline? What does that look like? And this is where we're really beginning to support people. And actually, I think it was AbbVie at our activation event in January, who had achieved the best workplaces for women in 2019, had seen seen a huge increase in the number of international female applicants for roles within Ireland and within AbbVie. So it's great to see that those recognitions are really beginning to drive pipeline into the organizations. The final piece then that I just want to show you is the kind of piece that we can do on our website. So we have organizational profiles that organizations can populate themselves. And what this allows organizations to do is to give the market a sense of what their recognitions are, kind of a broad stroke around what their scores are, a little bit around their culture, messages from the top, what kind of organization they are, and a whole range of different bits and pieces that really kind of bring that recognition to light and becomes that kind of central place where you can go and find out all the information. And actually you can see here, ORS, one of our small civil engineering companies, has actually put job postings up as well. So it's driving applications straight into the organization. So yeah, feel free to log on to greatplacetowork.ie and have a look at those best workplaces and the ways in which people are really utilizing that function. So we are suddenly at 10 to the hour, so we're coming towards the end of our time. So I would encourage anybody who's got any follow-up questions to pop them into us now. But I have been given some over the course of today. So I think a couple of clarifying questions and then some broader questions as well. So Brian and Cathal, buzzers at the ready. I'm going to send a couple of questions across to you at the moment. So one question that actually came in beforehand was around this organization has tried to do this a couple of times before, and not a Great Place to Work survey, but an internal survey. And they really struggled to move beyond it being seen as a HR thing and HR looking for individual responses. People felt very watched. So what are kind of, how does Great Place to Work support people to make sure that it doesn't become a HR thing, and B, I know Brian, you kind of covered the confidentiality piece, but that it isn't, people know that those individual responses aren't being looked at. So Cathal, I don't know, do you want to take the HR piece?
Yeah, okay. So So it is a challenge, right? It's a challenge to create movement from data. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. I think what's important is how you set up the program. Okay, is important. So companies, it's very hard for people to say that they don't want to be part of a great place to work or the part of building a great place to work. So that can be useful from a positioning point of view and getting people behind the survey and the follow-up. I think the architecture of the plan is important. All right. So most of our clients will have leadership support for the program and the plan. HR will be involved, and they'll also set up an internal working team, which kind of represents the positive elements of employees' voices, and they'll take a couple of areas and work on improvement. So it's not a HR initiative, and it's important the plan doesn't look like it is a HR initiative. So I think leadership team, HR, internal working team, working in concert with each other, I think is the right way to set up that plan. Celebrate wins. Don't try and overcommit, if you like, and under-deliver, because that's a common thing that we see. But we know we can support you in terms of giving you insights and giving you a solid action plan to focus in on. But do think about that, the architecture of the plan. It's leadership team, it's HR, and it's internal working team working in concert with each other.
Yeah, and I suppose the piece I'd add to that is that actually we've seen organizations really develop how this supports that HR agenda too, knowing where your investment is going, where you want to go as a HR team, getting that senior leadership buy-in. It can be really useful, I think, for organizations to do that, understanding who your key stakeholders are, who to engage, when to engage them, all those kind of bits and pieces. We've really seen organizations do well in that. Brian, do you just want to talk in a bit again about if people are worried about individual responses being seen?
Sure, absolutely, I can. I would just build on what you and Carl have both said there, is that I've had a number of clients before when they did engage with us that had run internal surveys themselves, and the challenge for them was they got so much information back, and they often use the phrase, they answered a question and it wasn't the question we asked them. So what's really important around Great Place to Work is that statements are tested, so we know what the responses should be, we know what to expect, and we're not asking leading questions. So for an internal group, it can be very overwhelming to receive responses to a Survey Monkey and have a huge amount of responses and actually not know how to prioritize and how to point in that direction. And then you coming into that thing that you just asked me about in terms of confidentiality, and am I likely to make a career limiting comment that if I pass comment on something, is it going to come back and bite me later? And it really gives organizations and people within organizations, I should say, real confidence that their responses come back to us in Great Place to Work. We only share them back on a level where confidentiality is absolutely maintained, because it's really important for us that people are surveying in that safe space and are allowed to do so. Right down to comments and suggestions, we go through those and we sanitize them, I suppose you would say. The vast majority are fine, but some of them need to be cleaned up. But if there's identifiers around a particular manager in a negative way or a particular person, we isolate that and remove that comment, so that nobody can be identified back into their actual team in terms of that comment that is made there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Brian. And I think we've only got time for one more question. And Cathal, I think this is probably one for you. People asking, there's kind of a couple of questions that have come in around the same piece, this idea of learning from other organizations, talking about benchmarking. I suppose, can you just give people a flavor of what that community looks like and how we run that, I suppose?
Yeah, so from the start, when we set up the business, right, we were conscious to really invest in this community, companies learning from each other, companies sitting down, connecting in with another company, and knowing that if they give some insight into what they do, that they'll receive that back. So I suppose it happens on a number of different levels, Phineas. So one level is the one-to-one connections. So we go in and present the results, and let's say a company has a particular challenge that they really want to get into. They might say, look, Cathal, can you connect us in with an organization that does this area really well? And that's part of the program, and we can make that connection. And in the years of doing this, every company seems to be quite willing and open to sharing, which is great. We then host a number of events during the year. Now our events are Zoom events. We're enjoying them. We're we've got that regular slot on a Thursday, but that's what we do with those events is we look to bring compelling and interesting content to clients. What are the issues that they're challenged with, they're grappling with, and let's bring some content to those events. So we ask organizations who do those areas very well to come in and share some insights around what they do. Pre-COVID, we had an event the start of the year where we partnered with the Odeon Cinema, and we invited clients along to hear about this whole area of employer branding and what companies are doing to activate their brand to attract talent. So that's kind of how the events will take place, sometimes on-site events, sometimes in hotel spaces. But that community piece is really important, and that learning from others piece is a really important part of the program. So that's from an events point of view. Was there a benchmarking piece to the question as well, Fenia, or?
Yeah, I think it's just, again, I know we had another one earlier, but this idea of, maybe just run through the benchmarking piece one more time, just so people are clear on it.
Yeah, so just on the benchmarking, so you can benchmark against similar size, similar industry, benchmark against the 3 list categories that we have: small, medium, and large, in terms of best workplaces listing, so the benchmarking possibilities are kind of endless. We usually kind of narrowed it down to you can benchmark against 3 other benchmarks. You definitely need a benchmark that stretches you within that set. Look, there's lots of data, as you said at the start, Fania. From an Irish point of view, there's over 60,000 employee responses. So lots of data, lots of benchmarks.
Yeah. I think that the piece I'd add to that, and then we'll wrap up, is what the benchmarking, especially from a survey point of view, allows you to do, because the temptation is to jump into your low scoring areas, right? These are my 3 lowest scoring questions. These are the ones I have to quote unquote fix. But what the benchmarking allows you to do is see, okay, this is a low scoring area for us, but it turns out it's a low scoring area for everyone. Whereas we have another area where maybe it's communication involvement, where we thought we'd score pretty well, but when we look at the benchmark, we're actually falling behind. So what is it that other organizations can do that can, what is it that organizations are doing that we should be doing, or how is it that we can focus on that? But so just to give you kind of a sense of those as well. And then we just got a question from Katia here. So in addition to the EU list, do we have country lists or startup, SME and industrial lists? So Katia, I'll just jump into that one really quickly. So we have our national list that comes out in February every year. And that's broken into small, medium and large organizations. So that's what we do at a national level. And then there's a range of kind of other ones like the European list and the global list. But nationally here in Ireland, we have a small, medium and large list that we do. At the moment, no industry lists, but who knows? Who knows where that's going to go in the future. Okay, so we are wrapping up now. So I'm gonna finish out with our final slide here again. I know Cathal introduced this at the start, but this really is the program in a nutshell. If there was one piece that you want to refer back to, this visual really kind of takes you through our whole journey in one go, right from that project kickstart call through to kind of action planning, tailored support, and hopefully some recognition for you too. Organizations are fully supported throughout the process, either kind of by our team who usually sit in the office but are now sitting at home, or somebody like myself and the other account managers who really kind of are there to answer your questions. I'd like to thank both Brian and Cathal for taking everybody through this session today. I'd like to thank all of you on the call for being with us, and do feel free to get in touch with us afterwards if you have any follow-up questions, there's anything we didn't cover today, or if there's something that we should maybe do in another Zoom webinar, let us know. We'd be delighted to hear your feedback. So thank you all very much for being here with us, and thank you Cathal and Brian for taking us through that today.
Thank you guys, pleasure.
Good luck guys, good to see you.
Thanks for taking the time.